Welcome to Masters of Product Management, a show that gives you real-world techniques and cutting-edge strategies to learn, apply, and succeed in product management. Now, here's the master himself, Stephen Haines.
Welcome back, everyone. So, one of the things that I've seen, actually, I think I'm guilty of this, is I like new stuff. Sometimes in business, we call them the shiny new objects. It's the new products, it's the new technology, it's the new features, it's the new UX. It's everything that we think may be needed by customers. And this is a natural human instinct. We're drawn to this because it's novel, it's fun, and exciting. So a number of you who are familiar with how I think, it's that we have to look at products as businesses across their entire life cycle from start to finish. And it's not a continuous thread of development per se, but there are points where we have to just take a freeze and say, what the heck is going on? And how do we look for areas to optimize? It could be a process, or maybe shoring up cross-functional support, or doing things like growing the product's market share. So not too long ago, I was chatting with Tara Newboult, and Tara is the Vice President of Product Planning and Strategy for WorldPay. She is a tremendous advocate for ensuring things like product ideation and development that look at not just one, but many products. So it's sort of a portfolio perspective, which is, a beast unto itself. But even with her Six Sigma Black Belt and her career in operations and financial services, like in Aflac, on their strategy team and international client services, she's really just one of the world's experts in payment processing and things like that. Now she's at this incredible organization at WorldPay. And in driving some of these disruptive ideation efforts, we were chatting the other day about some of the things that product people can do to literally raise their game and think a little bit differently. So Tara, thank you for sharing those conversations before we got on the show, and welcome to the show.
Well, Stephen, thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm excited about this.
So when we did speak last week, you were pretty passionate about the fact that product managers need to focus on these aspects of the product business that don't include the next best set of features. So that's a statement. But I'd like you to share with us and our listeners the kinds of things that are going through your mind when it comes to this topic.
Well, it's an important one to me. And you mentioned my background is in operations, and I was in operations for over 20 years. And so when I made the decision to come over to product, one of the compelling reasons I wanted to do that was really to bring that different perspective into the product team. And I've seen many times, and you mentioned the bright new shiny object. I think for a lot of product managers, the bright new shiny object is the product and the features. And there's so much more wrapped around that can easily get overlooked in the excitement over the feature set and the excitement over, the go-to-market proposition. There's training, there's communication plans, there's how do you implement the product, how do you roll it out to your clients and enable it? It's ongoing support. It's the issue resolution. If there's issues, how do you fix those? It's that feedback loop with the clients as well after you get it live. So there's so much more that you have to wrap around a product than just the product itself. And so I saw an opportunity to go over to product and really have that voice from an operational perspective to really help product managers realize that, yes, the product and the features itself are obviously critical, but there's a lot more that you have to think about to have a really, truly successful product.
Yeah, these are incredible value drivers. Sometimes as products evolve across their life cycle, it's not that core set of features and capabilities. It is that training and the ongoing support. And I think that those are critical value drivers. But there was this other thing that we talked about, and again, it goes back to the shiny object. And I found this even in my corporate life where, this is when I worked at Oracle, and everybody, wanted to only work on new stuff. And that after a while, the new stuff became the old stuff for them, which is weird. And they started losing steam. What are you seeing in this area?
Yeah, I think it absolutely happens. And it's really not even unique to product development, is it? I mean, it's the corporate environment as a whole. They get a hot topic, a hot button, flavor of the month, whatever you want to call it. And everybody kind of forms around that. There's, this group of excitement that forms around that. And then 2, 3, 4 months down the road, they're on to the next. I call it corporate ADD.
That's really a new one.
Yeah. Well, it is though, isn't it? It's this inability to sustain focus for the long term. And so they kind of, drop in and out on products. So there will be a time of initial ideation where everybody's very, very excited about this new idea and they throw every resource they have at it. And then I think, interestingly to me, about the time it starts to go live in the market, they'll lose a little bit of interest. And then seems like 2, 3, 4 months after it's live in the market, then there's another hit of, oh, wait, we've got this great product. How do we maximize it? And then that'll last for 3 or 4 months, and then it'll start to lose steam again. So there's this cycle almost of ups and downs. And I think the peaks get lower and lower and lower and lower as you go through the product life cycle until products die, almost not from actively deciding that the product will die, but almost from a lack of attention in the corporate environment. I don't know how to fix that, but it's fascinating to watch that. And I think migrating your product team or migrating your company towards an environment where you're actively recognizing that pattern and actively deciding what your next steps are puts you in far greater control of the revenue for that product.
Well, in the products that you may have in your company, you talk about these 3 or 4 month cycles. There are a lot of companies that are iterating very quickly and they're doing, sprints every couple of weeks and things like that. So, I hear you and I guess this is an anthropomorphic perspective, but it's almost like there's neglect if you're waiting that long when you're dealing with products that are software based and technology based. How do we keep people motivated? And the other part is, shouldn't product managers be self-motivated?
Yes, and I completely agree. And I don't think the cycle of an engagement really is with the product managers. I think it's everybody else in the organization almost, because I do think your good product managers do sustain the excitement and the passion, and they do keep pushing it forward. Their ability to engage attention from others cycles more so. And so I think as a product manager, you really have to think about how do you sustain interest in your product. It's almost an internal marketing campaign for your product. And I think that's how you can get around that is how do you, and to your point, Agile actually, I think supports that very well because you are getting frequent releases. So how do you leverage those frequent releases to sustain the attention and sustain the excitement around your product?
One of the things that we see works very, very well is when, let's say there's some customer interviewing taking place where other people on the development team, literally on that agile team, that dedicated team, is listening in to the customer on an interview or visiting the customer. Yeah. So when you're getting multiple eyeballs, you have a chance to ignite interest from more than one person. And I think that is a way to do that. Have you seen that or examples of that in your company?
No, I think you're right on with that. I think in many companies, and I've worked in several large corporations, I think there is a disconnect, obviously, between your team members and your clients. And anytime you can bring that client viewpoint in and make it directly impactful to your team members, you absolutely generate excitement. I think people internally are hungry for that perspective. They struggle to get it day to day. And so I think not just interviewing, but I think where you can make it real, where maybe you can go out and take pictures of the client experience, or you can videotape the client experience, or do some type of audio taping and bring that back in and let a larger group hear that. I think there's a real appetite for that internally, and you will absolutely drive action with that.
Yeah, that's for sure. I love the angle that you had in terms of innovative ways to sustain products. You talked about disruption. Can you explore that a little bit further and what's it mean for product managers?
Yeah, it's so exciting, but at the same time, I think it's really scary. So when you talk about product disruption, I think individually people really struggle with, hey, am I someone who can have truly disruptive product ideas? I mean, you hear about the really fantastic ideas that change a market, and those are disruption, right? And when you're a product manager, you're thinking, gosh, can I have those types of ideas? Can I change a market? And there's an excitement about that, but at the same time, there's a little bit of a fear about that. And so for me, the approach that we've taken is really to help our product managers realize it's not all on them, that there's a whole team of people that you bring in, and there's a whole number of resources externally to the company, internally within the company. And by bringing those resources together, whether it be through relationships with startups or through partnerships we have with other organizations or through internal experts that we can bring on board, that bringing all of those thoughts and ideas together is where disruption comes from. It doesn't necessarily come from an individual. It's really a team effort. And that I think is very empowering and very exciting.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. In terms, listen, I don't know that I'm innately innovative. As a matter of fact, I have. Oh, it's being transparent now. I've often been accused of being sort of knee jerky in terms of I see something and it's my shiny object, right? And then there are other people who are in my ecosystem who sort of put this thing around my neck and say, "Whoa,
Yeah.
slow down there." Sort of there's all this stuff and this excitement going on. But in the end, it really is about how can a product manager focus on improving the business of their product, not necessarily just through the next feature and some of the other things that we've talked about. But do you have a couple of hints that you can share with them so that they have some takeaways from this show?
Yeah, I think the biggest hint, I guess, for me, the biggest value that I would suggest product managers nurture is persistence. So don't give up. Keep focusing on your end goal and to really clearly define that end goal and what it is. And then you don't have to have a straight map to your end goal, except that there's going to be barriers and there's going to be roundabouts and there's going to be ups and downs, like we talked about earlier. But having that persistence and keeping your eye on that goal, you'll be able to work around those. And I think recognizing the other tip I would give is recognizing as a project manager is that you do not have to know it all, that you can access other resources. And that goes around, I think, disruptive ideation, but also around the day-to-day of your product. You don't need to know, for example, how your operation shops works. There are experts in operations that would be happy to share that information with you and help you support that. There are experts externally to your company that have good product ideas. And maybe when you couple it up with the competencies in your company, you're going to have a disruptive product idea. So just recognizing there's a ton of resources out there to help you as well, and that you don't have to do it alone.
I think that's really great. I'm going to wrap this up, but I have an expression. I don't know if I have actually monopolized the expression, but I used to say to my staff years ago, I said, you just can't make an appointment with creativity.
Exactly.
And, you have to, and to complement things that you've talked about, product managers need to broaden their perspective. And I think that very often their heads are down all day long. And especially, there's a lot of mixing of product management and product ownership kinds of responsibilities. And in more cases than not, the product managers have to do those kinds of things and really both, dig in deep with the dev teams as well as being outside.
Yeah. And it's almost distraction, isn't it? It's almost distraction from what they're really there for.
Well, but it's also, I think, meditative, meaning, I know it sounds a little zen-y, but when you're away from the office and you're in the field, there's something that you're attuned to and you're putting up your antenna, but you don't know what blips are going to be showing up on your screen. And you have to sort of allow that to happen because if you're on the day-to-day treadmill, that's what's going on.
Yeah, I agree. So it's this ability, I think, to open yourself up to it, but also to recognize it when it comes to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're at the end of our time together, and it always goes so incredibly quickly. But we do try to keep these podcasts relatively short, so that people can, with the short attention span theater, right, that they can actually get a couple of decent tidbits. And so I want to thank you for sharing some of these insights and thoughts with us today. You certainly were inspiring to me when we spoke last. And you did. You've spoken a lot today, even about the kinds of things that they can use to drive value or to be creative or to broaden their perspective and to do research outside of their realm. And I think those are all key takeaways. So as I conclude, thank you, Tara, for being with us today. And for you, our listeners, if you have a topic that you'd like me to discuss on this podcast, or if you have somebody who you think would make somebody as an interviewee, if you will, or even if you're interested in training, coaching, or other product management resources, please reach out to me through the contact form at Sequent Learning Networks, and be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter. So for now, have a great day, and we'll see you next time on Masters of Product Management.
Looking for resources and best practices in product management? Just go to Sequent Learning Networks to gain access to real-world tools that can make a difference. It's all there at sequentlearning.com.